Yo, what's up? Remember UFC 1? Well, today, James and I are going to talk about UFC 1, so don't miss it. Check it out.
1978とある田舎町で生まれて移り住んだ新宿で育ちこの町で起きたこれまでの俺たちのここまでの生い立ちはほんのまた序の口試されたいちいち正してきた過ち騙し合いやからしないはスニッチの始まり放課後の登山所児童館にホームアローンそんな時間はほったらかして向かったとある場所
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. Enson, how you doing today?
Great, man. Awesome. Getting a little warmer here in Japan, so getting real nice weather coming around.
Yeah, I saw you were taking cold showers. You got to tell people.
Yeah,
about
well, that's not that warm, so
no.
Still pretty cold.
Yeah, it's cool actually because I was going to watch Egan's video about the benefits of it, right? And it's kind of I've heard about that, cold water stuff. You see like Joe Rogan and George St. Pierre like jumping into these ice buckets, but I might have to try having a cold shower now and again.
Yeah, well, Sarah does it where she's just in the regular shower, and then at the end of the shower, she turns it cold.
Just switch it to cold.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of. It's almost like fasting. There's a lot of benefits to it, but people just don't do it because it's a raw, uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
Yeah.
Cool. So today we thought we'd go back in time because this year it's 30 years since UFC 1, the first ever UFC.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's going to be in November. It will be 30 years. So, if you're watching this now as we kind of record it, or if you're watching this in November time, then you can see kind of what we thought about the show. Go back in time, talk to Enson about where, he was when he watched that event, and maybe talk about some of the characters, maybe even some of the commentary. But I guess let's start with the first time you ever saw UFC 1. Where were you?
I was actually in Japan already, so I already had a close acquaintance with the Gracies. So I already had trained under Helson for a couple of years. I already had met Royce and trained with Royce. So when the UFC 1 was coming, almost felt like a friend was fighting. And I remember when I saw it, I was in Japan. I was at a racquetball club, actually, sitting down in front of the TV watching them fight.
How do you watch it? It surely wasn't on like pay-per-view, right? Over there, or was it?
Gee, I don't know. That racquetball club that I was at, they had it on TV. So,
wow. Yeah,
it's amazing when you think about it. How did they actually have it on TV? Because they didn't have any pay-per-view, or I wonder how they did that. But yeah, so I did watch it then, and I mean, I was still on that, I was brainwashed that, UFC, I mean, not UFC, that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was the untouchable art. Mm-hmm. So I was nervous, but not to a point where I ever thought Royce was going to have a problem. I almost felt like a guru, like I knew Royce was going to win, I mean, there's nobody's going to touch Royce, so, and it did happen like that. So, I mean, for me, it was like, yeah, I knew Royce was going to win.
Kind of cemented your beliefs, right? I guess by what's after the end of it.
Yeah.
It's such a cool event, though, right? Like it is literally the movie Bloodsport come to life. This battle of styles, and when you watched it, like the production of it back then, is that what you were kind of thinking? This style battle? Because when I watched it, and I watched it way later when it happened, it would have been soon after I became an MMA fan in like 2004. And I just remember watching it thinking like, wow, this is just like the movie Bloodsport, and the fact that you got the different styles fighting each other. And okay, no one died or went blind, but it was just I don't know. For me, it had that vibe. There's a certain vibe to UFC 1. Even when you watch it now, right, it feels different to anything else out there.
Yeah, it was definitely the style versus style. And at the time, I was more a racquetball player than a fighter. I was training, but I knew nothing about proper technique of striking. And for me, it was like, wow, barbarians, unreal, crazy martial artists fighting. And when I did watch it today, just to review it, I noticed how low the level was. At the time, I didn't even think that, though. I thought they were like, wow, crazy fight, great expert martial artists.
Yeah, and I think it's just the time as well, right? Like I remember back like in that sort of age, what like 1993, it was all about like the martial art magazines and stuff like that. You had people like claiming to, you know, have the like touch of death, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was a completely unknown time there. Like it's so weird. You think 30 years ago, like so much has evolved within MMA over time.
Yeah, lucky one of those touch of death guys didn't enter, or we'd have a
I know
death in the sport.
we'd have a problem.
Lucky for all the other opponents.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is actually the roster of people. I was doing a bit of research before, and I didn't realize actually that they asked for a ton of K1 kickboxers at the time. Because you were actually in 1993 in April, you had the first ever K1 World Grand Prix. And apparently they asked like Ernesto Hoost, they asked Satake, they asked like a number of different people. Now, most of them turned them down. The only Dutch kickboxer that accepted it was Gerard Gordeau, who we'll come on to a bit later.
Crazy man.
Crazy Gordeau.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy to think they actually went out and tried to like invite all these different people. And you know, who they got was kind of this mix and match of styles, right?
Yeah, yeah. That was incredible.
So let's break down the card then. So the first fight, the most historic fight, starts with Taylor Tuli versus Gerard Gordeau. Tuli coming from a sumo background. Apparently, he actually was in the same stable as Akebono. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I didn't know that either until this morning. So, but yeah, he's a Hawaii boy as well.
Yeah,
And
I knew that.
yeah. But yeah, you know, what was your impressions of that fight?
Well, I know I've known Taylor. There's like a street fighter in Hawaii, not necessarily sumo, but more street fighter. And you know, it's funny because back in the day, it was still size will be the stronger fighter. So going into that fight, watching the fight, I'm thinking, oh damn, this is going to be Taylor. Tuli's going to massacre this guy.
Yeah.
And in fairness to Taylor, I think he underestimated the rules and the way the fighters were going to come. And when he lost his balance and fell to the cage, he didn't realize that, you know, anything goes means anything goes, you know. And when he was like really carelessly getting up, Gordeau caught him with that kick in the face, man, and the guy knocked some of his teeth out. Yeah, you could literally see the teeth flying out.
Yeah. The teeth go
And
flying.
I think he had one tooth wedged in his foot.
Yeah, that's the story, right? And apparently
they
didn't want to remove the teeth from Gordeau's foot because it would have been too much of an open wound, so they just taped it up. And he went out for the rest of the night with this tooth in his foot.
Crazy man.
Crazy
But yeah,
Gordeau,
so
indeed.
that one fight alone just started off with a bang because one, it showed that how violent the sport is, how you know how you really can get stuff that you see in the movies, kicked in the face, you know, that kind of stuff, lose your teeth kind of stuff. And it also showed the rule set was really not like nothing anyone's seen before. There was no such thing as fair play. Guys getting up, you usually let the guy get up or the ref steps in and lets the guy stand up. But as the guy standing up, you kick him in the face. It set a tone for what we're in store for.
It really does set that tone. It's something else. Just the visual of Taylor again.
You could see that viciousness in Gordeau.
Yeah.
Like he was very merciless, and you know he has a big reputation back where he came from.
Mm-hmm.
And he's you know linked to all the underworlds and real pretty much don't give a fuck kind of guy.
Yeah. And he obviously went on to do the whole Valley Tour of Japan. Had that horrendous eye injury in Nakai, right? With the eye gouging. Jesus. Yeah, it was something else. But I remember you saying you met him like years later and he was like the nicest guy.
Yeah, we even Sarah met him. He was super friendly. He was a joker. He would joke over every little thing. And yeah, like the nicest guy. I mean, you know, I guess there's a Gordeau that goes into the ring and fights for his life, and there's a Gordeau, the everyday person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Nice guy.
definitely. I think the only other cool story I heard, which relates to this, is with Taylor. You know, they apparently the event was the night before. They almost nearly cancelled it because fighters were debating the rules. They were upset, and then apparently Taylor just stood up and said, "Look, I'm here to party. Let's get on with this," sort of thing. And then the fighters just kind of
Sounds
agreed
like
to
a
whatever.
Hawaii brother right there. Fuck, I like scrap. Let me scrap.
Let me scrap. Let's just go.
I
So
never heard that, but I totally sounds like what something one of the Hawaii scrappers will do.
yeah, he's a big actor now. Well, he's done Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah,
Did
I
you see
think
him
he
on
was
set?
on Hawaii 5. I think I was on with him on a shoot at Hawaii 5.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a kind of famous guy in Hawaii because of
Oh,
his
is it?
acting.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. That's cool. That's cool. Um, the next fight was Kevin Rosier versus Zane
Zane
Frazier.
Frazier. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, that was an interesting fight because obviously Rosier was more of a street fighter than a proper martial artist,
mhm.
but Zane Frazier was a legitimate kickboxer, and you could tell in the punches that they were throwing and the knees. Zane threw very technical punches. He had proper form, and Rosier was doing like pounding on the head, and
Yeah.
they kind of pretty much street fighting style. But what really was interesting about that fight, it was like technique doesn't necessarily win over everything because Rosier pretty much toughed it out,
Yeah.
and with the horrible technique that he had, he actually beat a technician, a proper kickboxer in Zane. So brawn and toughness just outlasted technique.
Yeah. Did you notice the hair pulling as well when they're like his
Yeah,
hair
and
on the
even the
floor?
groin shot that
The groin shot. Yeah.
Rosier took, it was pretty much there was no doubt in the referee's mind or the fighters that there was going to be a break or a stop or a caution or anything, and just kept going.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. It's kind of shocking to see because you forget like how brutal it was right back then.
Yeah,
But yeah, just seeing how he toughed it out and came back. It's a good one.
yeah,
But yeah, so that was that fight. I didn't actually realize that Zayn actually had quite a long career in MMA after. I didn't think he had the best record. I think he went on quite a bit of a
yeah,
losing streak, but he
yeah. I
actually
think he
stuck
actually
around for
fought
quite
in
a bit.
Japan. He came and fought in Japan also.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy. Some of these guys, what they went on to do, because a lot of people sort of had a one and done, especially in UFC 1, right?
yeah,
But yeah, one person that did have a one and done was Jimmerson, who fought Royce Gracie, which has to be, if you think of if I say UFC 1, the two images that conjure up from my mind is Gordeau's kicking the teeth out of Taylor and Taylor sort of charging at him, Tuli. And the other one is the one glove, Art Jimmerson with the one glove. That's what I think of UFC 1. That's the kind of the image. If someone said to me, "What do you think of UFC 1?" That's the first thing that sort of comes to my mind. Royce Gracie in his gi, when Art Jimmerson with his one boxing glove, and it just makes you think how random the birth of MMA feels like sometimes. But it's that style battle, right? So,
yeah. It's real funny because in Syracuse when they had the big MMA Expo, Art Jimmerson was there,
oh, cool.
and it's so funny how that's his claim to fame, wearing that one glove and fighting in UFC 1.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget his performance. They forget how fast he tapped. Because, it was, I mean, give him all the props because he actually got in the ring where a lot of K1 fighters didn't want to fight. And I was telling Sarah when I was watching it over again, I was saying, you look at these fighters, they're really not very technical. So they either one of two things. They're really like crazy warrior guys, or they're delusional and think they're really good. Or else no one else would get in the ring because they're the UFC 1. I mean, for me also, even if I was training more, I don't think I would have went in the ring. I mean, it was too barbaric and too unknown. It was something that I would think I just watch on TV and not something I would even consider myself being in it. So, with that said, I would give props to Art Jimmerson for actually getting in there. But, I mean, he was just just was. He tapped without even taking a single punch. I think Royce like mounted him, palmed him a couple of times, but it was really like pretty much, Royce didn't believe on the face strikes to the faces to make the guy turn his back.
Yeah.
So he could choke him out. So Royce wasn't throwing punches to hurt him. And I think it was surprising to Royce because he even hesitated getting off the mount because when Art tapped, he was kind of like, I didn't do nothing. Why is he tapping?
Mm-hmm.
So Art pretty much went in there with his one glove, got his claim to fame of being a participant in the UFC 1, and just pretty much decided he wanted to get out without a scratch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny though. That is his actual body of work in the UFC is not the best performance. I will say, however, that I did learn that he was 29-5 boxing record, coming off quite a bit of a big win streak, actually. Now I don't know how good the competition was, but he must have thought, I'm just gonna go in there like I'm the boxer, I'm a professional sport, I'm gonna be able to just, circle these guys, land some jabs, and get the win, I guess. But
so he would probably be in that delusional list, thinking that he's a better fighter than he actually is. And when he got to the ground and couldn't get out, he was like, "Holy shit!" He was waking up to reality, like, "Oh my god, I'm not as good as I thought I was. I better get the hell out of here."
It would have been interesting to see if they paired Art up with, I don't know, one of the other guys. Like, imagine if you put him against the Kevin guy or Kevin Rosier or
yes, I would have loved to see that, or even like Zane and Jimmerson. Yeah, it would have been pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, different brackets, right? I don't think he would have coped with Ken, but anyone that knew a little bit of the ground, I think, they're obviously gonna win, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that visual will always forever stick with me. Art in his one glove. But so, and then we had Ken Shamrock versus Patrick Smith. Now, I think a lot of people know Ken Shamrock. Obviously had a huge wrestling career, but a very meaningful MMA career. Patrick Smith was a guy that had a lot of big K1 fights, right? As well, he fought Andy Hogan. That he passed away, but a piece of shit from what I heard.
Real dirty fighter, pretty much almost like the type of fighter you think would fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
Didn't he have a lot of criminal charges? I think one was like, wasn't he like something with a woman or something?
No, with a teenager. He got convicted in 1999 of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl or something like that.
No way, he's a pedo.
Yeah, so.
Oh, damn, I didn't know that. What a disappointment.
Yeah, so there you go. So, but he bounced around from the UFC. I think he did a couple other tournaments and then did K1 as well. So he was in the scene. But, I remember him and Andy Hoog, right? That's a big one from back in K1 back in the day. But But yeah, guys, sounds like a piece of shit. So, however, Ken Shamrock, this is what I want to know, right? So when Ken obviously gets him down to the ground, he's in like Pat's guard or whatever, and then Ken actually gets up and then goes for the leg lock. One, at the time when you're doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, were leg locks a big thing? And two, what were you kind of thinking when you saw Ken get that finish?
Well, in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu also had leg locks. Of course, like I used the word delusional because we didn't know much about leg locks, but we didn't think it was dangerous. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu didn't feel like there was a leg lock was any threat. So, it would have been very interesting if Ken had the position to get Royce in a leg lock, because it would be interesting. I mean, knowing Royce, he probably wouldn't tap. So if Ken could break the foot or tear the ligaments, he probably would have. And I'm sure Royce would have continued fighting. But yeah, that would have been interesting to see what would have happened. But the Gracie's, the Jiu-Jitsu didn't really understand leg locks. We thought we did, but we didn't. So, I'm sure, even, see Royce seeing Ken do the leg lock, he probably thought, Patrick Smith's that unskilled that he couldn't take the leg lock. I think, didn't Patrick tap pretty fast, like he was afraid of getting hurt?
No, I think he did crank it pretty hard actually, because
Oh,
it
he
looked
did
like,
crank it.
because there's a
Okay,
bit of
okay.
a struggle back and forth, and then Ken really like gets the twerk. I
He
think it's
got
more
him
like an
cranked.
ankle
Oh,
lock
that's right.
actually.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then because there's that you see him kind of like limping off with his leg
Yeah.
in kind of
Yeah.
bad shape, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Ken kind of held it a little bit because, well, you can see there's a bit of a theme right in the show that holding submissions is kind of comes with the territory because the ref don't have a clue like what's going on, like they're tapping and the
Yeah.
ref taking their
That would have been
time.
interesting to see Ken get Royce in a leg lock, because I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, almost certain that Royce wouldn't have tapped. So it would have been interesting to see how Royce would have fought with, a little bit of a damaged leg.
Hmm. But yeah, no, it's again, that's a pretty cool visual from the show where Ken's sort of standing over him right after basically like breaking his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that was the opening first round for the fights, and then we moved to semi-final territory, which you had Gerard Gordeau going up against Kevin Rosier. Now
Mm-hmm.
Kevin comes into this fight right looking absolutely like battered already. Like he's got so much Vaseline over his eye. Like, I mean,
His shorts all the way to his chest.
yeah. It's got to be one of the best MMA attires, right? What he's wearing, like super. I don't know how you describe those shorts. They're like,
Diapers.
yeah, literally. But yeah, he comes into this fight, and Gordeau is looking pretty fresh, right? Other than having teeth in his feet, and it does not go well for Kevin Rosier. He I think one of the most brutal moments is actually just as the ref's waving it off, Gordeau just stamps like on Rosier's ribs, and it looks so painful. It looked like one of the most worst sort of ways to just like finish the end of a fight, like have potentially
Yeah,
a rib.
Rosier kind of moved. It looked like he's kind of. Why'd you do that? That hurt.
Yeah, like I was done already. Like, whoa, man.
And
Gordeau was
Gordeau's
something
kind of like,
else.
"Oh, what would I do? What I do? I just stomped you, motherfucker." It's like
Yeah, yeah, just like
such a like
he's part of
walk
the
in the
game.
park for Gordeau. Yeah.
Literally, Gordeu was one of those guys where it was like, just that's what he did. That's what he did on a weekday. Do you know what I mean? Like,
You could almost see that Gordeau's seen a lot of stuff on the streets
yeah, definitely.
and done a lot of stuff in the streets where this is pretty much all in the day's daily life for him.
Hmm.
It didn't phase him at all.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, right? A lot of these guys had backgrounds in the streets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was cool to see. Then we have the super fight, or what later became the super fight anyway, was Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie, which bit of controversy, where essentially Royce gets Ken in the choke, right? And Ken's tapping. And then like after there's all this confusion. I don't know what do you think what did he say something to the referee or what? Like,
No, I think the ref didn't really notice the tap,
yeah.
or Ken gave up. Royce released it, and Ken started continuing again. Where Royce was like, "Wait, what's going on? You tapped. You gave up. And Ken was big enough to, say, "Yeah, you're right. I did.
Yeah.
So if he didn't say that, I think Royce would have had to beat him twice.
Yeah, I think he would have. It would maybe like a restart, but
I mean,
just
but it was probably the mistake of Royce for letting go.
yeah, which
Yeah.
he learned in the main event. Spoiler alert. But yeah, no, I think it shows you the level of reffing back then as well. It was just like
Yeah.
so new. It's kind of they're just like a tap. Is that how we finish these fights? Like it's like
It's amazing. It's amazing. And in that fight, the thing I really felt was knowing how dangerous Ken Shamrock is from his Pancras career. He was a complete fighter. He was actually a better complete fighter than Royce. He had more striking. He had better takedowns. He also had footlocks. He had decent groundwork. Pancras does submissions also. So he didn't have that level of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, but he was a damn good submission wrestler too. So, I mean, the way Royce made it look like, they were on a different level, which they pretty much weren't. I think Ken was pretty as dangerous as Royce, if not more. It's amazing how, Royce was so composed and just kind of made Ken looked like just another one of the fighters in the UFC one. You know, it wasn't like he didn't show his how great he actually was. He kind of, you know, he kind of put the flame out on Ken very strategically.
Yeah, Ken definitely didn't have the showing in that fight. But the thing I guess people have to remember is that Ken actually fought in Japan 4 days before in Pancrase. Like that's pretty nuts. That's pretty nuts, right? Like
Yeah, that guy.
You think fighters that I don't know live in Japan and come to the US, they typically come sooner than 4 days, right? They will come the week before just to like get over the jet lag or whatever. But imagine if you said actually you've got to fight 4 days before in a Pancrase event and then actually fight again.
Well, that's probably the mentality of the fighters back in the day. They're like pretty much straight up warriors off the streets.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We'll get into how this kind of inspired your fighting career a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, these guys, along with yourself, the OGs of the sport, but just that mentality of just ready to go anytime, anywhere. They really, really echo in it, to be honest. So, yeah, and it was cool. I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, we did talk to Royce and we did talk about UFC 1. So do check it out. We did talk about some of those fights and how he, you know, what his mission was in that tournament. And it's like you said earlier about him like not really throwing the strikes. It's because they wanted to demonstrate the technique. That's what Royce explained it in the episode. So
yeah.
If you enjoy this, check that one out. Before the final, I don't know if you saw this on the broadcast. There is like they do something with Helio Gracie, where they kind of give him like a trophy or a platter. And funnily enough, the fans will start booing. I don't know whether because they're speaking Portuguese or what, but like, or maybe the result of the last fight. But the fans are literally just like booing this. Like,
oh, I didn't watch that, but I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's your early indication of MMA fandom.
In America, yep, American MMA fans.
Yeah.
Some are still like that today, believe it or not.
Yeah, crazy. The final was Ken Shamrock versus Royce. No, sorry, Royce Gracie. My mistake. Royce Gracie versus Gerard Gordeau. Crazy Gordeu. What did you make of this fight?
Well, you know, of course, Royce's standing wasn't really much of a standing game. His clinch game wasn't much of a clinch game, so it was a little bit dangerous for Royce to be standing on his feet. But once he got to the ground, you know, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu took over. So pretty much a real striker grappler type of matchup.
Yeah, definitely. You can still see Gordeau like grabbing the cage quite a bit, like stopping him from getting the takedown and that. But yeah, as we said, once Royce gets the choke, he just holds it, and the referee's trying to get him off him, and he's like, not after that last thing with Shamrock. He's literally just holding it. And I'm surprised something didn't sort of break out after, given the characters involved, right? But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, after watching UFC 1, what was your feelings at the time? Did it make you go, I want to do that?
Not at all. For me, still, like I said, man, the UFC was a whole different level, was a whole different animal. And I was still a racquetball player. So when I saw that, I didn't wanting to fight in it or wanting to be in that was not even a thought in my head. It was like I felt like the UFC was for fighters or warriors that like are made of a different cloth. Mm-hmm. And it was more, if anything, my thought was, like I knew Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is the greatest art in the world. You know, that was how my whole thing. Yep, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I knew it. I knew they're gonna win like that. You guys didn't know that. You don't know Gracie Jiu-Jitsu then. You know, that's how I was after that first one.
Yeah, it's mad that you say that, considering that like nearly 18 months, 2 years time, you then go on to like have your debut fight. Like it's really not that long after that. You think it was November 93 and yours was 95 in the summertime sort of thing.
Yes. So, yeah. It's one of those things that my whole life, man, just like living in Japan, you would think that I planned that for a couple of years or even 5-6 years. It happened. It just happened. One day when I'm thinking of wanting to stay to learn the language, all of a sudden I got this job offer to teach, and I was like, okay, I'll stay in Japan. Mm-hmm. everything was like, my whole life was like that. Even making bracelets, the same thing like that. I was like, yeah, I'll just learn to make, because I make for my friends. Cool. Next thing you know, I got a website and a company. You know, so I think I consider myself a blessed and lucky person. A lot of stuff in my life happened like that.
Yeah, true. To be fair, that kind of happened with this podcast. It was originally I was supposed to edit you some YouTube videos, and now we're nearly 100 episodes deep. Like,
yeah, no shit, huh? We're
crazy.
still waiting for people to pick up on this because I think we have very interesting stuff.
Yeah. I've been looking into YouTube. I think the algorithm changed. This is completely off topic, but I think that's why our views have been like nuked because they've changed the way you do things. So,
oh, really?
We'll talk about it offline, but got some strategies coming. So,
all right.
In the meantime, the people watching, like, share, subscribe. Please pass it on to your friends.
Yeah, please spread the word, man.
Spread the word. We've got loads of exciting stuff coming up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we got the only other thing I think we really need to touch on is the atrocious commentary of the event.
I think the commentary just showed the you know, not they weren't stupid or anything. It was just very uneducated. Like, and I think Bill Wallace was more of a striker. That girl Kathy was also just a striker. So it's almost like two jiu-jitsu black belts commentating a boxing fight, or boxers commentating a jiu-jitsu match. No, they tried their best. Some of the terms they used were atrocious, but I mean, it is what it is, man. I mean, you had a big names commentating, and they just didn't know have any clue at what the first technique on the ground was. So, you know, it was interesting. It was kind of almost entertaining, the commentary.
Yeah, it is, especially looking back on it now, right? You can. It was funny actually because I noticed that I think the post-fight interviewer, was like Rod Machado or something, and I was like, no way, he's not one of the like related to the brothers, right? And then I googled it, and I was like, no, nothing to do with
no. He just had that right name, yeah, Machado.
Yeah.
Like, ooh,
crazy,
Machado.
like the irony of that. But yeah, any final thoughts on the event?
No, I just that it's crazy how UFC 1 turned to what it is today. And of course, Jorge and Gracie and Art Davies started the UFC, and then they passed it on to I think it was I think Art Davies then took over, and then Dana stepped in. Yeah, so UFC 1, of course, the credit goes to Jorge and Art Davies for even starting it off and having that vision. And I think a lot of the credit goes to Dana White. You know, he's the one who never gave up on it. UFC and mixed martial arts pretty much is what it is today because of Dana White. He refused to give up on it. As much as I mean, it was barbaric. There's no way the sports. No one wants to sponsor it. No one wants to commentate it. No one wants to even do ring announcing. Bruce Buffer, his brother. What was his brother's name? His brother's actually Mike Buffer was the man, and Mike refused to do it. So Bruce said, "Hey, shit, I'll give it a shot and do it." You know, so even that, you know, he took that chance to do it and be tied to some human cockfighting sport. And you know, I mean, as much as some people dish on Dana White, as far as I'm concerned, he's done he's made what UFC or MMA what it is today. So I personally I thought I gawked at the slap fighting thing, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then when Dana was behind, I was like, oh no, what is he doing? And then what I remember thinking was, wait a minute, what I'm thinking of the slap fighting right now is exactly what I thought is exactly what a majority of the people thought about the UFC or MMA back in the day. Dana has an idea. Dana has a vision. So I decided to step back on criticizing or judging it too fast, and pretty much see what Dana has in store. So
I think I watched the first 5-10 minutes of Slap, but I couldn't really. there's not much competition involved in it. I find, you know, like I think for me, MMA always appealed because originally it was that style versus style, and then you see the evolution of martial arts, and then these athletes getting better and better and more competitive. There's a real competitive nature, but kind of, unless I'm missing something with slap, it feels to me just like, I don't know, unless it's like the angle of the slap, there's just not enough there, if you know what I mean.
Well, I didn't know anything about it, but I think when I'm talking to Yoko, there's a lot about the not just the angle, it's how you where you hit in the hand and where the hit goes. Does the hit go through? Does the hit go up and down and out? So, and you know, if you're, I think in Japan, if you have a 5 kilos weight difference, you can't bend your knees. So, you know, for me, I'm like, oh, I guess bending your knees really makes a difference.
Yeah, I guess.
I know the US you can't take a step, but in Japan you can take a step. So it's, you know what? It's straight up like the UFC when you had other events coming up and the rules were all different and the rules were just all over the place. So I think it's one of those things that's just a new sport, and I don't want to judge it too fast because that's exactly what happened to the UFC when they first came out. And, I was on the other side where I understood UFC, so I didn't know what these other people were talking about. So I'm now on the other side of the fence, not understanding what slap is and wanting to jump off and criticize in the beginning, but now I'm holding that back because I'm gonna, you know, watch and see what more comes out of it before I even make a judgment on it.
Now I wonder if it takes off. I don't know. I feel like it doesn't do the best numbers that you kind of see on
I don't
YouTube.
think it will either, but so didn't the people that didn't like the UFC. They thought it was going to be a sport that was going to be gone in no time.
Sure.
But look at it now, one of the biggest sports in the world.
Yeah. And I always think Dana was right about COVID as well. Like in the beginning, it was kind of like, whoa, like, what are you doing? Putting on events? Are you crazy? And he was fucking 100% right.
Dana's a very smart guy and knows what he's doing. That's the one thing you can't put aside from Dana is he's a smart guy and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, they made it work. They made lockdown in the UK way more entertaining because it was like the one sport that was on.
For the whole world, man. For the whole world. There was nothing to watch. There was no sports going on. But there was the UFC.
Yeah,
thanks to Dana.
Yeah.
We should try and get him on the podcast one day, yeah?
That would be interesting. That would be pretty cool.
But I would like to stay away from certain topics.
Like what?
Like his
Frank
slap.
Shamrock.
His slap. And yeah, and a lot of the people that I'm close to don't like him.
Yeah.
I think we would have to really guide the podcast and like what we talked about just now, like how he had faith in the UFC and, you know.
Yeah.
And if you want to ask him anything you want, you could go for it, man.
What's your relationship with Randy? Randy said this.
Randy was on our podcast, said this about you. What do you say about that?
Fuck Randy Couture. You can hear it now, right? Could be
that's the thing with Dana. He's straight up and blunt, so he'll probably say shit like that.
Yeah. Maybe if that's a possibility, maybe we should plan for that, an in-person one for that one, because that's probably warrants it, right?
Maybe a time that I go to Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, yes. See if he's down.
I mean, that guy is so busy, man. That'd be incredible if we could have time with him.
Yeah, I would fly out for that. No, not gonna lie.
Ooh, I see it in person like that. Yeah,
it'd be cool. Awesome. Well, let us know if you want to see that. I'm sure there are people are completely split. You know, Dana splits everyone, right? You got people that love him, you got people that hate him. So let us know in the comments how you feel about that, about a potential episode there. So I'm sure that would get some views.
Yeah, it would, huh?
Yeah. No, definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you like that, let us know if you want to hear more. Obviously, K1 World Grand Prix, I mentioned 30 years this year as well. So maybe we can do that one. We did Pride 1. I saw someone in the comments recently saying they really liked the Pride episode we did. So maybe we'll do Pride 2 and we'll carry on with some of these older events. But yeah, let us know what else you want to see. And I will throw it over to Enson.
All right. Well, yep. Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys share. We got good content. Just people don't know about it. So spread the word.
Spread the word. All right. Thanks, everybody. Speak to you soon.
All right. thanks for joining us on recapping UFC 1. It's one of the historic events that started off MMA. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, please. Right on.